secret of a great marriage is an enduring love and mutual respect, and the desire and the capacity to talk everything through. The big thing I think is the fact that we've been partners and we've talked about every issue, because in marriage you have the good times and you have the not so good times, but if you can actually communicate with each other on each of the issues, including the good ones, then that helps mightily in providing stability in a marriage. And I think that young people have got to be able to do that, but they've also got to be able to stick with it during the hard times. We all go through that when the kids are sick, or you might lose your job, or whatever it might be. And it's being able to take cognizance of that and support each other when life gets difficult. That's a very important ingredient of a strong marriage. Well, the advice I'd give to young couples engaged or starting out in marriage is to really understand that when they are taking on marriage, they are taking on a sacred commitment, a commitment that is in the ceremony binds a man and a woman for life. So to be very, very sure that the person to whom you are getting married is somebody you're going to be happy to live with for the rest of life. I think trust, and again discussion. I can't overemphasise this, talking everything through. And this morning I talked about when the kids arrive. You know, sitting around that dinner table every night is a very, very important way of getting issues and concerns and interests and so on out into the table, out into to the open air. But trust in itself is a very important component. Well, you're always going to find some marital breakup. You know, relationships can get so bad that it is intolerable, and that's part of the human condition. But I think if you, and society goes about rethinking how to better prepare young people for relationships of all type, whether it's brother to sister, boyfriend to girlfriend, husband to wife, and really working on that, we'll find that marriages will tend to stick for the long term, and hopefully will reduce the separation rate, which I think is a highly desirable outcome. Well, I mentioned a couple this morning. I think a very good initiative has been the school chaplaincy program, with chaplains hopefully, and I hope we'll see in every school, or their influence in every school, because I think that helps to in a stability sense. And I think youngsters belonging to well-led youth groups, the cadets, St John's and so on. Now they're both areas where governments can play a part, and perhaps they can influence the education curriculum in terms of how to better prepare young people for relationships. But I think it's the society's got to pick this up. Churches got to pick it up. Teachers have got to pick it up. And above all, parents have got to pick it up. I think the pace of life. I think the fact that in many cases both parents are working, and that's probably an economic necessity in most cases or many cases. The fact that children now seem to have to be taken everywhere, to school, to football, to dancing lessons and so on. I mean, when I was a boy, I can't ever remember being inside the house except to have meals and do our chores. We had great freedom outside the house. We were expected to be on the river fishing or swimming, canoeing, what have you, and it was safe to do so. So our parents were not so involved. Today parents have to be involved almost in every waking moment, and that puts a huge strain, I suspect, particularly on the mums. And then there's the economic situation, the pace of life in general. All these things, I think, impact on the stability of marriages. Well, I think there's huge benefit in the early years, 0 to 5 or thereabouts, and because I think a parental contact is the best contact of all. It beats, the childcare centres and so on, obviously. And that first 5 years, and first 3 in particular, but the first 5, is really critical in how a child forms its thoughts, its the way it thinks and so on. And to have a parent there to actually to be there in that period, I think is very, very important. And when you look at it, 5 years in a life of 80 or 85 years is not a long time to spend in ensuring a youngster's got a good, got a good basis for growing up. Well, I guess that is a political decision, but I think the value in having a parent stay home is unquestioned. And whether we can do that in the form of some sort of allowance, tax, or what have you, that's up to the Parliament to decide. But I think in whatever ways we can encourage somebody to stay home for those first 5 years is well worthwhile doing. The tradition of the family coming together, we try each year, even though we're separated all over the country or across the world, for the family to come together at Christmas or on key occasions with all the grandchildren. And they did it for my swearing in then here when I was Governor General, and that was a tremendous thing. So those traditions, I think we always keep to the traditions of eating around the table at dinner time, having the whole family there, or the Sunday lunch and so on. So, and the traditions of a mildly disciplinary approach. I don't mean that in a smacking bottom sense, but I mean in setting parameters for children and for grandchildren, so that they know exactly where they stand, how far they can go and how far they can't. And I think that's very comforting for children to know that. I think we're blessed with wonderful daughters and daughters-in-law who seem to have this capacity within themselves, and they've probably got it from their own mums and hopefully their dads, because we see in our grandchildren happy, cohesive kids, but they are disciplined. I mean, they know when mum says to do something, they do it. They all have their chores at a very early age, to put the books away or to set the table. In other words, they're being taught to develop a sense of responsibility. And but the big thing, of course, is they know they're loved, and that's said often and with great feeling. I think most families try to do their best, but if a mum or a dad have not had that upbringing themselves, it makes it very hard to bring that about if that's not within your experience radar screen. And that's why I think it's very important to go back to the point I made earlier of better preparing young people for relationships of all types, particularly brother to sister, boyfriend to girlfriend, husband to wife. Because if we can do that better, then I think we'll have far fewer breakdowns. I think it's gone down from about 51,000 at the peak, and that perhaps when it was the new laws had come in, to about 47,000 now. That's good, but wouldn't it be great if we could get it down to 20,000 or 200 or what have you, whatever's achievable? And I think if we work at it, we will, because as we heard this morning in the key address, the impact socially, economically, on young people in particular, the kids, can be quite dramatic and traumatic. Not in every case, but in lots of cases. And if we can reduce that trauma and difficulty, then we should do so. You get in India, I guess, in a lot of cases, the interesting concept of arranged marriages. I'm not proposing that at all, but what seems to happen is that parents select people or partners or potential partners of the same education, same social thing, that the children seem to accept, and which tends to make for a more stable, longer relationship. We won't be doing that, but I have no doubt. But if parents can introduce their children to youngsters of a like mind, like education, like interest, etc., I think that can help in your child making a good choice of marital partner. I made the point this morning that we had 3 children under 2 years of age, including twins, and then I went off to Vietnam for undoubtedly a big rest. And then later when I came back, we had another one very quickly, so we had 4 children under 5, so it put a huge load on my wife, and then we were moving every 18 months or so with all these young kids and changing doctors and schools and so on. And Marlene had to handle most of that because I was off doing things. And that's where this partnership comes in. That's where, if you're getting married, say, in a service environment, you've got to make sure that your partner understands what he or she is going to be in for in terms of separation, in terms of difficulty. But the counterbalance to that was that we had the wonderful family of the army, the relationships, you know, like no other that I've seen in life. The relationships of the army families in bases in Papua New Guinea, England, wherever it might be, and the closeness and the way we all come together to help one another is very special. My class graduated from Duntroon in 1958. My class still meets regularly every year, and as some of us pop off the perch, we gather around the wives, the widows, etc., to look after them, and it really is a very special relationship, quite unlike just about any I've seen in any other walk of life. And it was like you know, in places like Papua New Guinea and so on, where I served and commanded, there was a small township, the township of Wewak, and in which as commanding officer, you know, I ran the whole thing: the doctors, the dentists, the hospital, the gardens for fruit and pigs, and besides running a combat battalion. But it was a very close-knit family group of Papua New Guineans and Australian officers and senior NCOs, and a wonderfully warm and happy environment.